Welcome to the Nipple Chronicles, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the raw and real experiences of women today. I'm your host, Jessica, and I'm here to challenge the norms, stir the pot, and celebrate the individuality of women, while confronting unhealthy societal norms and, most importantly, honoring our authentic selves. So buckle up and get ready to laugh, learn, and maybe even unlearn some of the things you thought you knew about being a woman today. Welcome to episode 6 of the Nipple Chronicles. I am here today with the lovely Blair Allen. She is a wife, entrepreneur, mother, and just all-around delight. Welcome, Blair.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you today as we talk about navigating life in a non-traditional long-term relationship. She is not married, but has been with her partner for well over 20 years. She has 3 lovely boys, and she is a business owner, well, multiple business owner. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, other than what I just shared?
Yeah, I grew up in Louisiana. My dad is Japanese, military guy, and my mom's just white, I guess you'd say.
American.
But transplanted into Louisiana from New Hampshire, so a little weird there. I have 3 beautiful boys, like you said, 19, 18, and 16. I've been with my partner in crime, my partner in life, Saul, for a little over 20 years, and I own a silkscreen company, and I dance my passion with vital development.
Oh, we love that. We'll get into that, actually. I'm fascinated by your vital development and dancing your passion. That sounds so much fun. So tell us a little bit about how you met your partner, the lovely Saul.
Oh, well, I was with a couple of friends planning to binge eat Chinese food on my sofa. And they were like, no, you have to come to this party tonight. We got to go. They drove me to the Valley, a place I had never been. And I met him at a party with drumming and a room full of vegetarians and vegans, which was like a candy shop for me.
Well, I imagine coming from the South, you had not really spent a lot of time with any vegans or vegetarians.
True. Very true.
Yeah, no, I dated a guy whose family was from the South, and they cooked things I had never heard of or experienced in my life. What part of the pig or cow is this exactly?
Or all of them, the Churduncan, is it?
Oh, I don't know. All the things. So you met your partner. I remember during our pre-interview, you shared that he was significantly older. So tell us, how old were you when you met him, and how old was he?
I believe I was 21 years old. 20? Must have been 20, and he must have been 43 at the time.
So that's a big difference. You're 23 years apart.
Yes, ma'am.
And now you've been together for 21 years.
Long time.
So tell us a little bit about your early marriage. Did you have kids right away?
Of course. Well, I was just young and enthusiastic about life and in love for the first time, really. And the kids just came, and I'm glad they did. I'm glad they came the way they did. And yeah, the early part was a lot of fun, a lot of travel, a lot of play, and just connection, I think, with my partner, and seeing how beautiful it could be to have kids and see ourselves in those kids.
I love that. See, I never even, I didn't put that in perspective of like see yourself in your kids, but I know I see it with my nieces and nephews, especially my niece. She's very sassy, and she got that from her mom. And I joke, I was like, well, if there's a genetic component, she probably got it from Auntie Jessica as well. So definitely great to, have that exploration of raising our children and starting to see all the effective and ineffective things, ways of being within ourselves.
Definitely right away.
So I know during our pre-interview, you talked about not ever really wanting to get married. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about what influenced that choice to not wanting to go down that traditional route?
I think what really affected it from, like, influenced it for me was watching my mom's failed marriages and her failed relationships. And it just kind of like made me wary of it. To me, love is not like certified by a piece of paper or a document. I'm committed to Saul and Saul's committed to me. I know that without a doubt. Every day we could fight, we could have the best day ever. And in the end of the day, we know that we're there for each other. We trust each other. We're loyal to each other. And I think I'm not a traditional person in any sense of the way, even if, like, from the outside, you might think I am. I was raised by a free spirit. My mom was definitely not your average girl. And she kind of gave me, like, this European parenting way of being. Like, you live through learning, and allowed me to learn and live my way, and always supported that. So I think for me, I didn't want to be that typical person. I wanted to feel free in all my exploration of life. And for me to love someone, I can express it in different ways than, like, the typical, here's our marriage document, and here's the ring, and here's the honeymoon. We can have a honeymoon every day if we decide to.
I love that. And I mean, definitely, we're pretty comparable age, and I have definitely subscribed to that freedom of choice. And not that, like, I have any, like, qualms or any issues with people who do choose to be married. Like, I think it's beautiful, and who knows, maybe one day, like, I would marry. I think during our pre-interview, you shared that as well. Like, so if you're listening, like, she's available if you ask nicely.
Depends on the mood.
Right. Depends on the day, depends on the mood. So tell me now, like, obviously, because you did inherit that kind of free spirit from your own mom, how did your approach to parenting differ, or was it the same as what your parents, specifically your mom, had passed down to you?
I think my parenting style is very, very similar to hers. I kind of trust my kids to screw up. And I know there's so much value in screwing up and learning from that. A little bit different, though. My mom did struggle with alcohol addiction, and I'm certified vegan. So a little different in that way. But very supportive of my kids learning through, I guess, falling down flat on their faces.
I love that, though. I was talking with somebody about that recently. There's a great book I read called Failing Up. And I mean, even a TED Talk that I coincidentally, came across during my rabbit hole of TED Talk watching. And it talked about the same thing, about how parents don't teach their children to fail with grace, teach their children to learn through failure. So I think that's very amazing that you've adopted a lot of those non-traditional ways of being and lifestyle choices to support you and your family to fail.
Yeah.
And grow through that failure. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So tell me, obviously, not being married, have you come up against any challenges, like legally or financially, or are you really adamant about taking care of your family and protecting your family from that standpoint?
We haven't really had any hard, like, challenges with financial things. It's pretty simple when you're not married. You just mark single, and it's just like, this is my account and this is what I have, and it's all straightforward.
So what about in terms of, I mean, obviously with an aging partner now, have you done anything to prepare yourself in terms of, like, the legalities with end of life, or, and again, not to, like, put that in a morbid way, but really, like, protecting your family that way, like having a trust set up? I know, obviously with that division of assets, like, what would that look like if you or your partner were to no longer be here?
Yeah, I have not done that, but I did recently speak to a friend after our last conversation about getting life insurance and setting up something. I don't know all the terminology, but it's a type of policy where you could withdraw money if you need to.
Okay. So yeah, no, it's really important. And again, like, that would be a tip to our listeners, like we all are not impenetrable to death. Like it could happen at any time. And then especially, I guess the way that our government and system is set up, that if you are legally married, like that is in place. But even that, like, I don't think people truly understand, like, having a trust, having a will, having life insurance, having whatever you need in order to protect your family, because people experience, sudden death all the time. Like not even, looking at the fact that your partner is a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. My mom passed when she was like 42 years old. So
yeah. So no, I love that in just our pre-interview conversation, I inspired, and it's my blessing and my curse. I think of a lot of things, and I'm glad that it had an impact. And for anyone listening, like definitely make sure to protect yourself, protect your assets, and communicate with your partner to share like, hey, this is what we need to do to protect our family.
yeah.
So no, I love that. And obviously now you only have one. You said 19, 18, and 16, right? So you just have one son that's legally, would legally still be in care. Well, I guess in need of your care.
Yeah. A minor.
Yes, a minor. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. So as far as like not being married, have you, and not to harp on that, but like, that's what we're here for. Have you come up against any challenges in terms of like expectations from society and friends and family?
Yeah, of course. I think more of it being the age difference than the marriage difference. Because most of our friends, like family friends, they're married, cousins, all of that. But we do receive negative like feedback, comments from people as far as our age difference that affect me, but also affects Saul more, because then he starts to feel, I think, guilty in a way. Like, people say things they shouldn't say without thought.
So just a lot of like inconsiderate comments.
Yeah, that really over time, I feel like do leave a imprint, a little mark on you.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like you're battling both societal ideologies about dating younger, dating older, and also about being in a non-traditional relationship. I think during our pre-interview, I shared my dad and my stepmom were actually together for a really long time. Like they owned a home together, they had multiple kids together before they actually started to even think about getting married. And I think where that came from was because they did have a couple friends who weren't married, and one of the friends' husband died, and it was complete shock. Like he went into hospital and just died, and then there was his partner without any legal rights, any legal protection. Even when he was in ICU, like she couldn't go in. They had been together for a long time and also had kids, and I think that really scared my parents. I was 14 at the time, but just I would imagine like that was pretty traumatic for them, and that was why they chose to get married. And they were married, probably they were only married about a decade, but overall they were together about 23 years. Yeah. So they were together from when I was 5, and they didn't divorce until I was almost 30. So they had a very long-term relationship without marriage. They didn't have the same struggle as you with age. I think they were only like 5 or 6 years apart, which still, again, when we're younger, like does make a difference. But I think, again, we choose the right partner for us. And like you said, lifestyle and who he was and just his soul and his spirit, like you felt safe and comfortable with him. So that's beautiful. So anybody who's coming up against like a relationship that's kind of outside of the norm, like what advice would you give to them?
If it feels right to you, I think it's right. No matter what anybody else says, you.
Yeah. So you've been in this relationship for over 20 years. What would you say do you actively do now and throughout the years to really keep that connection, that spark alive?
Well, I like to do new things and communicate. I think communication is super important. To be able to express where I'm coming from today as opposed to yesterday or last year. We've been together so long, so much has changed. inside each of us. And it's kind of like learning to ride the bike again, I guess. Like, where are we coming from and what do we need now? And I think that's just communication and being willing to go there. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it leads to big arguments, but ultimately it leads to intimacy and understanding. So I think just being able to communicate what we need from each other, and no matter what it looks like, again, it could be a huge fight that leads to the best results ever. And I think having a lot of time together, like outside of work, because we do work together, and outside of responsibilities, just being able to take time to just be goofy together is super important for us.
I love that. So what I'm hearing you say is communication, adventure, laughter, connection, intimacy. I mean, those are all vital, really, honestly, for any relationship beyond just a partner relationship. But that's great that you have that foundation within your relationship.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Do you think it's always been the case? I mean, obviously, you had small children at one point. Now they're much older. But do you think you've always had that foundation in your relationship, or is that something you've built?
I feel like we've definitely built it over time. It's shifted a lot since the kids were little. It was super chaotic when they were little. And it was like, where are we and what are we doing? Because it was just so many of them and work and everything. But I think definitely each day, each failure, if you want to say, each thing that we've done together has brought us closer together.
No, I love that. I mean, life is really about learning the lessons. And I think it's so important that you did from a young age have that just core value of understanding, like, be free to explore, be free to fail, because there's nothing that's ever perfect. And if anyone is out there proclaiming that they have a perfect relationship, a perfect marriage, a perfect anything, they're lying to themselves.
Yeah, they are.
Honestly. So, and I mean, I can't even imagine, like, here you were in your early 20s with 3 kids, 3 years apart, right? Like, from the top to the bottom, like
something like that.
Something like that. So that would mean if one was 10, you had a 10, a 9, and a 7-year-old.
Yeah,
running
crazy.
And all boys.
Crazy, nuts, energy.
Boys.
Like, whoa.
I hope you've since gotten rid of your original couch, because I can't even imagine what that disaster would look like.
Multiple times, multiple couches.
Probably had to paint the walls. I don't know what it is about young boys and their need to make walls dirty. Like, I don't know where that comes from. I noticed it in my own brothers and even with my little cousin. Like, why is your wall so dirty? Like, what are you doing?
That's so fun. I thought it was just us.
No. It's everywhere. I've seen it everywhere. I think I was joking with somebody about this recently. My parents have we'll call it like a cleaning nerd, a cleaning whatever trauma. And so sadly, or fortunately, I don't know, I inherited that. It was passed down. And so now I notice that, like, if I'm at someone's house and I see, like, dirty light switches or dirty walls, I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I definitely have been the girl that's at other people's house with, like, a paper towel. Like, let me just just swipe that. Like, did you not notice that? But now I can come from a space in my own healing of, like, well, they've got life going on and not everybody is raised the same way. And it might even be a trauma response, because I'm definitely a clean freak. And it's beautiful as far as, like, my house always smells good and things are organized, but it also does create a little stress. Like, and I don't have kids, so I have that luxury. So I assure you, to you, Blair, and any of our listeners, like, I am not casting judgment. Like,
definitely let the clean light switches go.
Right? No, but my light switches will be clean, but I will not judge you if yours are not.
Thank you.
It's not you. I know it's all of those boys in your house that you could teach also, like, hey, pick up your shoes and socks and put your things away, but
I could just let them learn too.
Let them learn. Exactly. Well, and
Surrender.
The funny thing is, though, I've dated the men who have learned the lesson to clean up their house, and I've dated the men who have not. So to those of you who are parents, know that one day your sons will date women, and they may have the same cleaning compulsion as me, and then your son will not become my husband, but yeah, I may just walk out, which I did actually. There was a guy who was dating. We'd gone on like 3 or 4 dates, and I went to his house, and he lived in Hollywood, so I was already stressed out because I hate trying to park in Hollywood. So I was already stressed out about the fact that like it was hard to park at his house. And actually, I hope he's listening. I hope he's listening. That was like probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, but I really do hope he's listening and he hears this of why I never called him back again. His house smelled. And it smelled like he needed to like wash his clothes or wash his sheets or like wash his towels. I don't know. The whole house smelled. Like I thought it was just like, oh, maybe in the bathroom. I get it. Like the things that happen in the bathroom and we clean ourselves there. Like you have to clean your bathroom. I love the tangent we went off on. But so we know my parenting style. Like clean your mess.
I used to be a neat freak. I'll say that.
Yeah. Well, you had to let that go with 3 boys. Like
if I wanted my sanity.
And your husband's very free flowing. So he would be like, oh, it's okay. Never mind about that. On to the next adventure.
He's the messiest one.
Shh, don't listen to that. She wasn't talking to you, Saul. Well, so we talked a little bit about obviously working and having a career and time management and priorities. Share with the listeners a little bit about what inspired you to become an entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah. When Suni, my oldest, was really small, I started back at work after being with him for whatever the maternity leave is, like 6 weeks.
Like less than 2 months.
It's not enough time. And I remember pumping my breast milk on my desk with the door locked and thinking of my son at home with a nanny who was getting half my pay, actually. And I was thinking, what am I doing? This is wrong. So I just, like, ultimately one day I remember being super emotional. It probably was something to do with my hormones after giving birth.
Probably.
And just calling my boss from the parking lot. I had driven to work and saying, I'm not coming back. Something's come up. And I never went back. And I started working from home soon after when I had the second one. It was with my son. We were managing. But when I had the second one, I started working from home doing graphics.
Okay.
When they would nap.
Nice.
Sometimes I'd fall asleep too.
You're entitled to. I definitely, even just in watching my nieces and nephews, I've put them down for naps and then wake up like 20 minutes later going, oh, well, it was just so cozy, because they want you to lay down with them.
Yeah.
Mommy, lay down with me, or Auntie, lay down with me, and then you just fall asleep. So you decided to quit, and then you, what have been your aspirations as far as career? Have you prioritized more motherhood or career?
I think I've done what I needed to get done over the years as far as career in order to put my focus on the kids, because to me, they're like such a valuable asset. Like they are my assets. Mm-hmm. They're what I really have. And I wanted to make sure that I was giving society men that were good men. I don't know if they always pick up their socks, but I want them to be good men. And I feel like they are. Like their essence is good. I don't feel like they'll do any harm in society. And I'm super proud of that work. That was immensely important. And now I have the opportunity with them being older to focus on my career and really going forward with it in a powerful way.
No, I love that. And actually, you were telling us early in the episode, and I did promise that we would come back to it. Tell me a little bit about your Vital Dance and what exactly that entails.
So it's something that is really difficult to explain. It's more of an experiential process.
Okay.
And even when I start explaining what it is, it sounds super like, what the heck is it? It's a movement technique that gives a person the opportunity to learn love, I think ultimately is what it is. Like, I grew up in a very broken single parent household. My mom struggled with addiction, and I didn't have a lot of the tools that I needed to be an adult. Through this work, I was able to fully mature, I think, into adulthood and learn what love actually is. I think in a lot of families and in our society, American society, touch is so neglected, I want to say, even in our own homes with our own parents, our own siblings. And it can be shocking to be hugged by 7 or 8 people at once to people, or to be seen in the eyes and like hold that eye contact. It makes people very uncomfortable. But so this technique is all about reawakening the human essence. And like, it's a very free form movement, but it focuses on expression, touch, being seen and witnessed and seeing the other. And it's very life-giving. It leaves you feeling alive. So it's like really difficult to explain, but
no, that was beautiful. Like, I got an idea of what you're describing, and really that is something that is missing in our society, in our world, especially in our country. I mean, in the workshop series that we met in, that was a little bit of a culture shock for me too, and like that the way people were really physically like intimate and hugs and, you know, touching each other, and it definitely it brought to the surface a conversation that I had so long about physical touch being strictly connected to sex, really, and to like your partner, and that was it. Like, for years I didn't even want to like hug my parents or hug my siblings. Like, I lived very isolated in terms of like physical touch outside of like partner relationships or sexual intimacy. So
I think most people do.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it does create such an interesting conversation just internally with the way that like our nervous system is regulated. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize that. And I think that's why even in motherhood, I have another friend who will be coming in on a later episode, and we talked about, you know, being overtouched and, you know, how when you do your breastfeeding and you have a small baby, and they really, I think the word she used was, you get touched out. So it's very interesting. I mean, as a mother and, you know, in your own experience of what, like, just intimacy in your childhood, and now you being this life force and this source of spreading that type of connection to support people to evolve and understand that, you know, there's so many different aspects of our being that we don't even tap into. Just being multidimensional humans and having this depth that people, even within themselves, don't have, like, self-awareness or self-intimacy to know, like, hey, I want to be touched, and it doesn't need to be sexual. I can have a warm embrace, and I can, you know, hug my friends. And my sister and I, like, definitely have had, like, a more, like, physical relationship. She was probably the one, and maybe even my youngest brother, but that was because he was, like, my little baby. And I, you know, he was always in my arms. Even as he got older, I can remember him being like 12 or 13, and we would, you know, cuddle, and I would brush his hair and whatever. But he really was like my child as far as that. But like, I will hold my sister's hand, and I'll, you know, like with little kids, we obviously, nieces and nephews, like I hold their hands and I'll give them hugs when I leave. But it's so funny. It's like, in our society, we age out of that, or so we think that we grow away from it. But like, little kids know no boundaries. They are all about physical touch. Like, my nephew, he's 5, and he will just be casually talking to me with like his hand on my boob or his hand on my shoulder, or like touch my face. And I'm like, hi, Ryan, like, you're very close to me, sir. Like, can I help you? And he's like, oh, Auntie, da 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 da. Like, he has no sense of like physical boundary. He just knows that like that's how he's creating intimacy and connecting and communicating. So I love that you have that tool that you're sharing with the world. And she definitely will, towards the end of the episode, I'll have her share all of her contact info and, well, her socials in every way that you can actually get a hold of her and learn about her programs. I know she'll have some upcoming events in the fall and we'll be able to all explore it. So stay tuned definitely on our social. We will share when the Nipple Chronicles come to Vital Dance.
Yay.
So, I mean, kind of piggybacking off of what you said in terms of, you know, prioritizing your family and still being able to do whatever you could do in your career, how do you feel like that coupled with, you know, your non-traditional values, we'll call them, how is that translating into your children?
Wow, what a question. I see that I have very non-traditional children, of course. We struggled with the school system with the 3 boys, and public school or some private schools were challenges for them as far as performance, I guess, especially for Suni. Poor my Suni, he's a hyper one. But I did find a good school for them that has allowed them also in a way that supports who they are as individuals, to develop that. So that's been great. Yeah. Oh, they're all different, which always amazes me because they grew up in the same house, they ate the same food, they have the same mom, the same dad, the same dog. It's like everything's the same, and yet I have 3 very different human beings in front of me. Suni is my replica. I don't even know how DNA works, but as far as like who he is as a person, I feel like I was able to put more of myself into him when he was young because it was just him and me. And my middle child is so, what is the word? Independent. I mean, I am not worried about that guy. He is so dependable, so trustworthy. He's on it. This kid is 18. He has 2 cars. One of them is like this old classic car that he's going to fix up, and he's really into it. My little one is like a fairy. He is such a free spirit, and I don't know where this world's going to take him or where he's going to go in this world. But yeah, I really see it in my kids that they are not the traditional, and they know that that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, even your house looks like a fun little fairy house. Like, so I've been to the front of her house. We were meeting, and it looks like something out of a storybook with all the greenery and even your front stoop. It's just so cute and charming, and I could understand like how that would be the perfect house for you and for your family. And I have a feeling that your youngest son will be absolutely okay because he has you and he has his father, and you will guide him and love him. And when the world takes a bite and spits him out because he doesn't quite fit in, it'll be perfect. And I think that it's so important for those of you listening who are struggling with that and feeling like you don't fit in, know that like your tribe is out there. There's plenty of other people that don't quote unquote fit in, and that's beautiful. You can find Blair's son in a few years. I'm sure he'll be taking over the world with his kindness and his heart. And when he fails, he has your middle son to have his back. And I love that. Oh, so this is the space for the realness and the rawness. And I love that, you acknowledge your vulnerability. And I love you being able to share with us, because there are plenty of people out there right now that are unable to really truly see where they belong and where they fit in. And I think that you represent a shift. I think that you represent a shift for how our world gets to be gentler with each other, loving, finding laughter, finding adventure, because it's so beautiful what we can create in our authenticity. And I do think what you said, really not to go glaze over that, early in the episode, you said in your motherhood, in your choices, being a mother, you wanted to make good sons and, make sure that the world gets to experience that type of man. And I think that's so beautiful, especially for our listeners who have struggled with men who aren't vulnerable and aren't open and don't express themselves. to find a man like that can openly own his freedom and take ownership when he fails, and being willing to navigate the world from that lens. Thank you for creating sons that have that. And I'm sure there's more out there. And so that's what's so beautiful.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah. And they'll find them, and they'll all be in a drum circle in Venice. I mean, it'll be full circle. That's where you said you met your husband. So full circle, and not to knock it. I love beats. I love music. I love rhythm. I love it all. And I mean, even like how we talked about the physical touch, like me having a breakthrough in that, and being willing to like let people in. I find myself in flow. I mean, even on episode 2 with my earlier guest, she talked about flow, and we both started swaying as she was speaking about it. So I think that it does really ground in that nurturing feminine energy, and really being able to understand that, like, as humans, regardless of your gender, we're all fluid and dynamic, and we have masculine energy and feminine energy, and we flow through it. And who knows if it's even, on that polarity of like masculine and feminine. Maybe there's somewhere in between where there's a femma skin. Who knows? Like, if there's X and there's Y, there's every combination in between. And I love that. I've met your oldest son, and he is very gentle heart. I did pick up on his hyper energetic energy, but it's definitely all still great and beautiful. And thank you on behalf of the listeners who are the future partners of your children. So what wisdom can you share about parenting, about relationships, like, with our listeners?
Wow. I'm like, wisdom. I'll share my experience. I don't know if it's wisdom.
So humble.
I don't know if it's wisdom. I'm still figuring it out. But with my parenting, I think surrender has been so key to that. Like the cleaning thing, or trying to control things, and just kind of letting that go has given me so much peace of mind around them and myself. I feel like our relationship is close. Sometimes it's not perfect. It can be really messy, and we can get really angry at each other. They've made me so angry that I've sweat out of every pore of my body.
Welcome to motherhood, where you sweat from every pore.
I need to go for a walk. But just being able to let go of what I can't control has been tremendous as far as parenting, and being available for them whenever they need me, whenever they want me. Because it changes. When they're little, you want space. When they're bigger, you want them back. So just being here for them whenever I can. I'm open for them. And I love when they come to me when they're older in tears or needing support. It feels like a gift. And for my relationship wisdom,
21 years now?
Yeah, I think it's a miracle. And it's just two people dedicated to each other and dedicated to our family.
Yeah.
I think that has kept us trying and trying and trying.
Well, I mean, I remember during our pre-interview you shared, you're like, oh, it is not anywhere close to always harmony and beauty, but it is even in the chaos.
Yeah.
Even when we're ugly to our partner, or we have moments where, like, you're screaming at him, he's screaming at you, you find your way back to neutral.
Like a guiding star.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like knowing that he's been there for me through some of the worst parts of my life, and I've been there for him, and just feeling at home with him and letting myself feel that. I think letting myself feel safe with him, to be imperfect and be received in whichever way he wants to receive me, but trusting that he'll always be there for me, I think has been the biggest key, because we make each other very angry sometimes.
Welcome to marriage, essentially without the marriage. Welcome to long-term relationships.
Yeah, we really know how to push those buttons.
I love it. Like, that's so beautiful. And it's also the willingness to have another human in your space, touch your buttons, both ways, but touch all the buttons, but also to, touch, like, to know you well enough to know what's going to make you like, and again, like, I know you and your husband are committed to personal growth and personal work, so that he has no power over you unless you're willing to like give him power, and trusting yourself to know even what that looks like. Sometimes it is the power to give you butterflies and woo your heart, and sometimes it's the power to make you want to like pull out all his hair and scream at the top of your lungs. But there's a lot of wisdom in everything you shared with us, and that's why I say you're so humble, because you are navigating something that even for our, Gen Y is not so common. Like, I have very few friends who are about our age that don't have anywhere near the amount of experience that you have. I think out of my close friends, I have one other friend who had children in her 20s, and everybody else, no one has kids. I have one friend expecting, but I'm thinking about it. I have one friend that's expecting and one friend from high school who has a 2-year-old. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like, and we're all late 30s, early 40s. And so that's why I say, like, in a time, and you're part of a generation that, like, at the time that we were growing, like, people weren't jumping into marriage or long-term relationships young. They weren't having kids. So I don't know if it's just the circle I keep that I don't have a lot of friends, or that it is pretty common, like, for people in their late 30s and early 40s to not really have a ton of kids, or to even have the long-term relationship that you have. So I really acknowledge you, because I know it's taken a lot of work and it's not easy. So especially for listeners who are struggling themselves in their relationships, like, know that there's no perfection. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. Like, anything you're doing, as long as, like what you said, you're committed to that shared vision, those shared ideologies, and even when your ideologies differ, like, being willing to come back to home base, being willing to find the pause and the neutral, and where you can ground yourself back in that shared vision.
Yeah, I think so. And just, like, I noticed for myself that I was looking for the same partner over and over again. So just allowing myself to just fully dive into that one partner and, like, fully know him by knowing myself, I guess. Yeah, it's been really powerful.
Yeah. So what are your aspirations for your family, for your partner, and for yourself?
Well, for my family, I'd love to see all my boys really happy, doing what they love in life, however it looks, and being with whoever they want to be with. Yeah. And for my partner, I guess I just want to continue to grow together and see where we can take it and enjoy life. I mean, learning to grow, which is difficult, we know. But also,
if you
like,
say so.
I think it can be difficult.
It can be challenging, we'll say.
It can be challenging. But enjoying it too. Like, learning to enjoy the chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a young woman, actually, I think she's 24, 25. She was our guest on episode 3. She made a really insightful comment about, like, in our, I guess, masculine energy, we're so focused on the destination and getting where we need to go, and we miss the journey. We miss the value of the journey. And so thank you. With your 21 plus years of a journey, you're able to give insight to our listeners and let them know that, like, it's not about the destination. It really is about the love, the beauty, and the joy that you get to save in your heart on the journey.
Yeah, I think it's a lot about perception.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, any day could be rotten or it could be great. It just depends how I look at it.
I mean, when you said that, I don't know why a banana came to mind. Even with rotten bananas, or ripened, we won't even say rotten. Even with ripened bananas, you can make banana nut bread.
So sweet. Yeah.
So sweet.
Yum, 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 yum.
And so she did make that sound earlier before we started recording, and I said I just saw this cute little rabbit like making that sound. But I mean, again, like, it's the beauty of the banana bread. Like, whatever it is, even in the, like, we'll call them the ripened moments of life, and sometimes it's rotten and sometimes we have to move past it, but there's so much sweetness in all of it, in the joy, in the love, and in the struggles, and in the tears. Like, thank you for really bringing that, to the foreground here on this episode, and sharing that, like, life is about those moments. It's about being able to take it all with stride and really embrace it, the whole journey. Yeah. So, well, any last words for our listeners?
Last words? Never.
Well, why don't you? I mean, you've shared so much wisdom at this point. Any tips? Any fun? Anything?
If it feels good, go with it.
Oh, that's the best one. So, according to Blair, if it feels good, go with it. So tell us how our listeners can get in touch with you and learn about your dance company or your movement company, as well as your screening company.
Yeah, we're just creating a new website. Should be up in a couple of days for our screen print company. And for Vital Development, I am on Instagram. It's Vital, VITAL _ Danza, DANZA _ Los _ Angeles.
So we will link it below and type it in the description below so that you do have that information. Well, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on our episode today and really shedding so much wisdom and insight about relationships, about motherhood, about career. It's been beautiful. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you too.
So stay tuned for the next part of our episode called Women Demystify, where we ask Blair some questions. Welcome back to our section called Women Demystified, where men can ask all of the questions that they are thinking about and society has told them not to ask, or their fear of us women. And we're here today with Blair, and we're going to give her a couple of questions that she can answer for us. So again, men, if you'd like to submit your questions, if you're listening on Spotify, you can submit your questions below. And if you're not on Spotify, follow us on Instagram at the Nipple Chronicles and DM us with your questions. So first question, how do you feel about aging in a youth-obsessed society?
Frustrated.
Authentically frustrated.
I'm very frustrated because there is so much beauty that comes with age inside. And it can be very frustrating to be like, I don't know, to experience that shift of becoming like less valuable in society. It feels like almost being less valuable. I am blessed with a very young looking face. Thank you to my father.
It's the Asian heritage and the round face.
Yes, thank God for that. But then I feel also like my body, of course, is aging, just getting up quickly. I feel in my lower back sometimes. And I'm like, whoa. Where's that even coming from? So it can be very frustrating to feel like somehow you became less valuable, or that you need to prove yourself in a different light in life as it progresses.
Yeah. So do you, I mean, obviously we're here in Los Angeles and there's a lot of, we'll say, tools available to try to combat the aging process. Have you indulged or partook in any of those activities?
I have not. I do practice hot yoga, which I think does wonders for my skin.
Sweat it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I am an avid spa attendee, so I get it. I've done European spa, American spas, and Korean spas. They are all there to enhance and maintain, really. And I think it goes so far beyond just like my physical aging, because obviously, yes, like staying, I guess we'll say, lubricated in our joints and being in motion and doing yoga, and that is so vital. But I also think it's so interesting how it's kind of glazed over and not discussed of like, what are you putting into your body? What are you eating? And I know you said you're vegan, so obviously like making sure you're getting all your macro and micronutrients. And this is for everybody, not just for vegans, but like really looking at, what am I putting in my body and how is that like impacting what is presented on the outside? I mean, I was reading an article yesterday about tampons and heavy metals and, you know, just like the lack of jurisdiction and oversight with our government in terms of like what we're putting in our body. And so what I would say is like, for those of you, I too am blessed with the young looking face. I will be celebrating my 40th birthday very soon. So I am also at a point where, and who knows, by the time this episode comes out, I may in fact already be 40, but, you know, post-production and everything, but really looking at like the whole picture. So, I mean, yes, it's easy to say like, oh, I'm frustrated. But I think the frustration comes in the fact of like I think the frustration comes in the fact that our society is so focused on like youth and not understanding. I think it was on episode 2, we talked about the seasons of life and how every season is beautiful and how for the most part our society looks at like late spring and early summer of life and doesn't really focus on the fact that like every single season is going to bring beauty. It's going to bring change and transformation and sometimes even healing. Like, I think it's so beautiful to really embrace the full scope of aging through life. I mean, it means you're here. It means you're continuing to have experience. It means you're continuing to breathe and create and release. And who cares? Like, really, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter how old you are. There's a woman that I met recently, and she's in her 60s, and she's gorgeous because of her. I mean, she's gorgeous because she has a beautiful face, yes, but she also is gorgeous because of the energy and how vital she is. And she too was in like, I think she was married for like 40 years and her husband passed away. And, you know, she's now navigating dating in her 60s. I'm going to find her and get her back and have her on this podcast. I know she would be a great person to talk to, but have her perspective on aging, because here she is definitely in the like late fall / winter of life, and she's reinventing. She is like ready to be out there and dating and sparkling, and she has this great energy. So for those of you listening that are concerned about the aging process, and for men that are concerned about your partner's aging, like, embrace it.
Yeah. I mean, what else can you do?
Embrace it. What is the alternative? Like, we freeze our face? No. I like to be able to, and again, we do not judge anybody here. If that is what makes you feel good and you use whatever tools are available to have you feel great, do it. I'm here to say, like, I tried out an eye procedure the other day. I mean, it was non-invasive and it was, you know, with my esthetician, but like, I'm like, oh, sure, try it out. Let's see. It was just like an eye treatment, and I do facials like usually once a month. And like I said, I'm an avid spa attendee. The people at the spa know my name. So when I walk in and I haven't been there for a while, they're like, wow, Jessica, we haven't seen you for a while. And a while is like 2 weeks. So I may, in fact, go tomorrow morning. We shall see. But if not, for sure tomorrow night. Monday at the latest. I'm definitely in need. It's been about 2 weeks since I've gone. So, well, thank you. Thank you for, you know, giving your insight on aging. It's beautiful. So question number 2, what are your emotional needs in a relationship, and how do you articulate that to your partner and request that support?
Yeah. So sometimes, life is kind of crazy. So we have the business, all kinds of things going on. We get a little, disconnected. And I really gotta like put up the red flags and be like, SOS, hello, are you here, sir? To get the attention I need. I feel like I need acknowledgement, appreciation, and feeling supported. And sometimes I have to just come right on out and ask for it. I mean,
I would think that that's the best way. I mean, yes, we want and we all grew up with the Disney fairy tales and the stories of these magical partners. Well, guess what? All of those stories only bring you up to the point that you find him. There is not one single story, fairy tale. They just say, and they lived happily ever after. They don't tell you what happily ever after actually looks like. And guess what? You get to be happy with sometimes your partner not listening to you and stretching yourself into communicating and asking for whatever you need. So that's definitely what I'm hearing you say. And I love it. The SOS, the red flag, whatever. Waving, not the red flag, the white flag. You have red flags, so you wave your white flag of like, touch me, hug me, hold me, love me, pay attention to me.
Look at me.
Look at me. No, and it's crazy because I feel like even in my relationships in my early 20s, I didn't know how to ask for that. And instead of, and not even just in partner relationships, but in all relationships, I didn't know how to create a boundary. I didn't know how to ask for what type of support I needed. And I think it's great that the question is like, what are your emotional needs in relationship? And I could go off of just that question and not even in partner relationships, but whoever I'm in relationships with, like, whether it's a friend, whether it's, and I actually had this with a friend recently where, he flaked out on somewhere we were supposed to go. And I called and I was like, you know what? I'm really hurt and really upset about you flaking, but I'm also going to take ownership of like not getting concrete confirmation. And when you were even showing signs of reluctance, not actually like just moving forward and saying, you know what, it's okay, I'll ask someone else. But that for me, I mean, yes, we're clear in our relationship in that conversation. And of course, there's going to be more moments where like, I'm going to have to stretch into like communicating that with him and like, vice versa. But it felt so good within me to say like, yes, this didn't work, but also this is where I'm taking ownership. And so that's why I love that the second part of the question is like, and how are you requesting that support? Because it's so easy to blame another person for them not knowing, but none of us know anything until you tell me, hey, this is what I need. Like, be in relationship with me this way. And exactly. I mean, it's funny, this is the common theme, I guess, in the last couple of months. Another friend, I said the same thing. I was like, I'm going to clear up everything that's happened up until this point. And 4 hours later, we were very clear. We like talked it all out. And I texted the next day and was like, hey, thank you. But also there's a second part to this conversation we were having of like, what do we get to create in our friendship moving forward? So, and most of my long-term relationships have come in the form of friendships, both with men and women. And I look at that now where even the one that I was just talking about, like we've been friends for 8 years. And, have gone through multiple partners. And I told him, I'm like, look, at the end of the day, if we can be clean and clear in our relationship, in our boundaries and what we're creating, I don't see us not being able to have a long-term friendship. Even if you have a new partner or I have a new partner or when you get married and I get married, like as long as those boundaries exist and the communication of like what our emotional needs are within this relationship, we can continue to foster this and it doesn't have a timeline until one of us no longer has a timeline.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the best way to get what you want is just to go and ask for it.
Go ask for it. Well, I really appreciate you for playing along. Thank you so much for being on the episode today.
Oh, it was so fun. Thank you.
Yes, I really appreciate it. So, for those of you listening, stay tuned for episode 7.